Quran chapter 23, Surah Al-Mu'minun, Believers by Sayyid Qutb. Translation by Muhammad Al-Amrani. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. The believers have indeed prospered those who humble themselves in their prayers, and who turn away from frivolous talk, and who are active in giving charity, and who guard their chastity save with their spouses or those whom their right hands possess, for then they are free from blame. But those who seek beyond that are transgressors, and those who are faithful to their trusts and their covenants, and who guard their prayers. These are the heirs who shall inherit paradise, wherein they shall dwell forever. Indeed, we created man out of an essence of clay, then we made him a drop of fluid in a secure resting place, then we fashioned the drop into a clinging clot, and then we fashioned the clot into a lump. And then we fashioned the lump into bones, and we clothed the bones with flesh, and thereafter we brought him forth as a new creation. So blessed is God, the best of creators. Then, after that, you shall surely die. And then, on the day of resurrection, you shall be raised up again. And we have created above you 7 paths, and we have never been unmindful of creation. And we send down water from the sky according to a measure. And we lodge it in the earth, and we are able to withdraw it. With it we bring forth gardens of palm trees and vines for you, wherein are many fruits for you, and from them you eat. And there is a tree that grows on Mount Sinai that produces oil and a relish for those who eat. And indeed, in cattle there is a lesson for you. We give you to drink from within their bellies, and you have many benefits in them, and from them you eat, and upon them and on ships you are carried. This is Surah Al-Mu'minun, the believers. Its name reveals its nature and defines its subject. It begins by describing the qualities of the believers, and then the discourse moves through the signs of faith within the self and in the horizons. It then proceeds to the essence of faith as presented by God's messengers, peace be upon them all, from Noah, peace be upon him, to Muhammad, the seal of the prophets and messengers. It addresses the doubts of the deniers and their objections to the truth and their opposition to it until the messengers seek help from their sustainer, and he destroys the deniers and saves the believers. The discourse then shifts to the divergence of people after the messengers concerning this singular truth, which is indivisible. From here, the surah discusses the stance of the polytheists towards the messenger, peace and blessings of God be upon him, and denounces this stance, which has no justification. The surah concludes with a scene from the Day of Judgment, where the deniers face the consequences of their disbelief and are reproached for their dubious stance. The surah ends with an affirmation of absolute monotheism and a call to turn to God, asking for mercy and forgiveness. Thus this is Surah Al-Mu'minun, or the Surah of Faith, encompassing all its issues, evidences and attributes. This is the central theme and the foundation of the surah. The surah is divided into 4 distinct sections. The first section begins by declaring the success of the believers. The believers have indeed prospered. It then describes the qualities of these believers who have been destined for success. It follows with the signs of faith within the self and the universe, presenting the stages of human life from its inception to its end in this worldly life, expounding in detail on the stages of the embryo and summarizing the other phases. The path of human life is then followed to the resurrection on the Day of Judgment. After that, the discourse shifts from human life to cosmic signs, the creation of the heavens, the sending down of water and the growth of crops and fruits. Then it turns to the cattle, made subservient to humans, and the ships that carry them and their livestock. As for the second section, it transitions from the signs of faith in the self and the universe to the essence of faith. This singular essence that all the messengers agreed upon without exception, O my people, worship God, you have no deity but him. Noah, peace be upon him, said it, and every messenger after him repeated the same until it reached Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. The deniers' objections were always the same. This is but a man like you, and if God had so willed, he would have sent down angels. Their objections also included, does he promise you that when you die and turn to dust and bones, you will be brought forth? The outcome was always the same. The messengers would turn to their sustainer, asking for his help, and God would respond to his messengers, destroying the deniers. This section ends with a call to all the messengers. O messengers, eat of the good things and do righteous deeds. Indeed, I am aware of what you do. And indeed, this nation of yours is one nation, and I am your sustainer, so be conscious of me. The third section discusses how people diverged after the messengers and quarrelled over that singular truth which they had been brought. But they divided their affair among themselves into sects, each faction rejoicing in what it has. It also speaks of their heedlessness to God's test through blessings and their delusion with the worldly pleasures they enjoy. Meanwhile, the believers remain in awe of their sustainer, worshipping him without ascribing partners to him, yet still in constant fear and anxiety. And their hearts tremble with fear, for they know they will return to their sustainer. The surah then paints a scene of those heedless and deluded ones when the punishment suddenly seizes them and they cry out in distress. They are then met with rebuke and reproach. My signs used to be recited to you, but you would turn back on your heels, arrogant over it, speaking ill of it by night. The surah denounces their bewildering attitude towards their trustworthy messenger, whom they knew and could not deny. He had come to them with the truth, yet he asked for no reward. So, what then could they possibly object to? They themselves acknowledge that God owns all that is in the heavens and the earth, and that he is the sustainer of the heavens and the earth, and that he controls everything in the heavens and the earth. Yet after this acknowledgement they denied the resurrection and claimed that God has offspring. Exalted is he above what they attribute to him, and they associated others with him. Exalted is he above what they associate with him. The final section leaves them with their idolatry and false claims and turns the address to the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, urging him to repel evil with what is better and to seek refuge in God from the devils so that he would not be angered or distressed by what they say. Alongside this, the surah paints a scene from the day of judgment, showing what awaits them of punishment, humiliation and reproach. The surah concludes by glorifying God, the sovereign, the ultimate truth. So exalted is God, the sovereign, the ultimate truth. There is no deity but him, the sustainer of the glorious throne. It affirms that the disbelievers will not succeed, in contrast to the affirmation of success for the believers at the beginning of the surah. And whoever invokes another god besides God without evidence for it, his reckoning is with his sustainer. Indeed, the disbelievers will not succeed. The surah ends with a plea for mercy and forgiveness, and say, "My sustainer, forgive and have mercy, for you are the best of those who show mercy." The atmosphere of the entire surah is one of clear exposition, calm argumentation, and heartfelt logic. The surah's tone is one that appeals deeply to the mind and conscience, with evocative touches that stir thought and feeling. The predominant mood is one of faith, as reflected in the opening scene of humility and prayer, those who humble themselves in their prayers. It is also evident in the description of the believers in the middle of the surah, and those who give whatever they give while their hearts tremble with fear, for they know they will return to their sustainer. And in the emotional touches, he is the one who endowed you with hearing, sight and hearts. Yet few of you are grateful. All of it is shaded by a gentle, faith-filled atmosphere. The believers have indeed prospered, those who humble themselves in their prayers and who turn away from frivolous talk, and who are active in giving charity and who guard their chastity, save with their spouses or those whom their right hands possess. For then they are free from blame, but those who seek beyond that are transgressors. And those who are faithful to their trusts and their covenants and who guard their prayers, these are the heirs, who shall inherit paradise, wherein they shall dwell forever. This is the true and certain promise of success for the believers. God's promise. God never breaks his promise. God's decree. No one can reverse it. Success in this world and success in the hereafter. The success of the individual believer and the success of the believing community. The success that the believer feels within his heart and the confirmation of it in his lived reality. It encompasses what people understand of success and what they do not yet know, which God has kept in store for his believing servants. Who then are these believers for whom God has written this decree? promised this promise and declared their success. Who are the believers for whom it has been decreed goodness, victory, happiness, guidance, and a goodly provision in this world? And who are the believers for whom it has been decreed success, salvation, reward, and God's pleasure in the hereafter? And whatever else God may will in both worlds, of which only He has knowledge. Who are these believers, the inheritors, who shall inherit paradise and dwell therein forever? They are those whose qualities are detailed in the verses following the opening declaration. Those who humble themselves in their prayers, and who turn away from frivolous talk, and who are active in giving charity, and who guard their chastity, save with their spouses or those whom their right hands possess. And those who are faithful to their trusts and their covenants, and who guard their prayers. What is the value of these qualities? Their value lies in the fact that they outline the character of the Muslim at its highest level. The character exemplified by Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, the messenger of God, the best of creation, whom God himself educated and perfected. God bore witness to his noble character in his book, and indeed you are of exalted character. When Aisha, may God be pleased with her, was asked about the character of the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, she said, his character was the Qur'an. Then she recited, the believers have indeed prospered until she reached, and who guard their prayers. She said, this is how the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, was. Once again, what is the value of these qualities in themselves? What is their value in the life of the individual, the life of the community, and the life of humanity? Those who humble themselves in their prayers, their hearts feel the awe of standing in prayer before God, so their souls become still and humble, and this humility flows into their limbs, their features, and their movements. The majesty of God envelops their spirits in His presence, and all distractions vanish from their minds, leaving them solely absorbed in Him. They are lost in the awareness of Him, preoccupied with communing with Him. They are so absorbed in this sacred presence that all else fades from their consciousness, and they perceive nothing but God, feel nothing but Him, and savour none but His closeness. Their inner selves are cleansed of all impurity, and they cast off all distractions, holding nothing within their hearts except the reverence of God. At that moment, the wandering atom reconnects with its source, the restless soul finds its path, and the lonely heart discovers its haven. At that moment, all values, objects and people shrink in comparison to what is connected to God, and who turn away from frivolous talk, idle speech, idle actions, and idle concerns. The believing heart has no space for frivolity, for it is occupied with the remembrance of God, contemplating His majesty and reflecting on His signs in the self and the cosmos. Every scene in the universe captivates the mind, engages the intellect and stirs the soul. The obligations of faith demand the purification of the heart, the refinement of the soul, and the cleansing of the conscience. Faith imposes demands on behaviour, requiring steadfastness on the lofty path that faith necessitates. The obligations of faith also include commanding what is right and forbidding what is wrong, protecting society from corruption and deviation. Furthermore, faith calls for striving to protect, uphold and honour the community, and to guard it against the schemes of enemies. These obligations are endless, and the believer does not neglect them nor exempt himself from them. They are imposed on him, either as an individual obligation or as a collective one. These obligations are sufficient to occupy human effort, life and energy. Human capacity is limited, and it can either be spent on that which builds, develops and elevates life, or it can be squandered on idle talk, frivolity and amusement. The believer, by the nature of his faith, is driven to invest his energy in construction, cultivation and reform. This does not negate the fact that the believer may seek some relaxation from time to time, but this is something entirely different from idle talk, frivolity and wasting time. And who are active in giving charity, after turning to God and turning away from idle talk, they turn towards charity. Charity purifies both the heart and wealth. It purifies the heart from miserliness, elevates it above selfishness, and triumphs over the whisperings of Satan who threatens poverty. Charity nurtures trust in what God has prepared as compensation and reward. It purifies wealth, leaving what remains after giving as pure and lawful, untainted by any remaining rights, except in cases of necessity, and free from any suspicion. It protects society from the imbalance created by poverty on one side and luxury on the other. Charity serves as social security for all individuals, as well as a safeguard for the disabled. It preserves the integrity of society, preventing fragmentation and decay. And who guard their chastity. This is the purity of the soul, the home, and the community. It is the protection of the self, the family, and society by safeguarding chastity from illicit acts and guarding the heart from unlawful desires. It preserves the community from the unbridled release of desires and from the corruption of families and lineage. A society in which desires are unleashed without restraint is prone to disorder and decay. In such a society, there is no security for the home, and the family loses its sanctity. The home is the foundational unit of society, the nurturing environment where childhood is cultivated and raised. This home must be secure, stable, and pure to serve as a nurturing ground and a place where parents can dwell in mutual trust, both caring for the nest and its young ones. A society in which desires are unleashed without restraint is a filthy, degenerate society, for the infallible measure of human progress is the mastery of the human will, its triumph over base impulses and the regulation of natural drives in a productive, clean manner. In such a society, children need not be ashamed of how they came into the world, for it is a clean, well-known process where every child knows their father. Such a society is not like the lower animals, where the female meets the male for fertilization, and, driven by the urge to mate, the offspring knows neither how nor from where they came. The Qur'an here specifies the clean places where it is permissible for a man to deposit the seeds of life, save with their spouses or those whom their right hands possess, for then they are free from blame. Marriage raises no doubts or controversy, as it is the established lawful system. However, the issue of those whom their right hands possess may require some clarification. I have discussed the issue of slavery in detail in the second volume of Fi Dilal al-Qur'an, where I explained that Islam arrived at a time when slavery was a global system, and the enslavement of prisoners of war was an international practice. It was not feasible for Islam, while engaged in wars with enemies who opposed it with physical force, to unilaterally abolish this system, thereby rendering Muslim prisoners slaves in the hands of their enemies while freeing the enemy's prisoners in return. Thus, Islam dried up all sources of slavery, except for prisoners of war, until humanity could establish an international system of reciprocal treatment for prisoners. Thus, female captives would arrive in the Muslim camp, and the principle of reciprocity would dictate their enslavement. The consequences of this enslavement meant they could not be elevated to the status of wives through marriage. Therefore, Islam permitted sexual relations with them through concubinage for their owners, unless they were freed through one of the many avenues that Islam provided for their emancipation. Perhaps this enjoyment contains within it the fulfillment of a natural need for the captives themselves, so that they do not seek to satisfy it through the filthy chaos of illicit sexual relations, as happens in our time with captives of war after the treaties that abolished slavery. That chaos which Islam abhors. All of this remains until God wills them to ascend to the rank of freedom. And a bondwoman reaches the rank of freedom through many means: if she bears a child to her master and then he dies, or if he frees her voluntarily or as part of expiation, or if she requests to enter into a contract of manumission by paying a sum of money to redeem her freedom. If he strikes her in the face, her expiation is her liberation, and so on. In any case, enslavement during war was a temporary necessity, a necessity of reciprocation in a world where all nations enslaved their captives. It was not a part of the social system in Islam. Whoever seeks anything beyond that, beyond lawful wives and what their right hands possess, such are the transgressors. There is no increase beyond this in any manner whatsoever. Whoever seeks beyond that has indeed strayed outside the permissible bounds, fallen into the realm of prohibitions, and transgressed upon the sanctities that were not made lawful through marriage or jihad. Here the soul becomes corrupted, for it feels it is grazing in forbidden pastures. The household is corrupted, for there is no assurance or trust therein. And the community is corrupted, for its wolves roam freely, biting here and there. This is the very thing that Islam seeks to avert. And those who are faithful to their trusts and their covenants, they guard their trusts and covenants as individuals, and they guard their trusts and covenants as a community. Many are the trusts laid upon the individual and the community, and foremost among them is the trust of the innate nature, fitra. God has created it straight and harmonious with the law of existence, which it is part of, and to which it bears witness to the existence of the Creator and his oneness, by virtue of its inner sense of the unity of the law that governs it and governs all of existence, and the unity of the will that has chosen this law and governs this existence. The believers safeguard this great trust, not allowing their innate nature to deviate from its straight path, so it remains steadfast in its trust, bearing witness to the existence of the Creator and his oneness. Then come all other trusts, following upon this great trust. The first covenant is also the covenant of innate nature. It is the covenant that God took upon the innate nature of humanity to believe in his existence and his oneness. Upon this first covenant rests all subsequent covenants and pledges. Every covenant that the believer enters into, he makes God a witness over it, and he refers back to the consciousness of God's awe and fear in fulfilling it. The Muslim community is responsible for its public trusts, responsible for its covenant with God Almighty, and for the obligations that arise from this covenant. The text expresses this comprehensively, encompassing all trusts and all covenants. It describes the believers as those who are faithful to their trusts and their covenants. This is a constant characteristic of theirs at all times. The life of the community cannot be sound unless trusts are fulfilled and covenants are observed, and unless everyone in it feels assured of this fundamental principle of shared life, which is necessary to provide trust, safety, and peace. And those who guard their prayers, they do not neglect them out of laziness, nor do they abandon them out of carelessness. Nor do they fail to establish them as they ought to be established. Rather, they perform them in their appointed times, complete with their obligations and recommended acts, fulfilling all their pillars and etiquettes, with a living heart fully immersed and with emotions stirred. Prayer is the connection between the heart and the sustainer. Whoever does not guard it cannot be expected to guard the connection between him and people in a genuine way, driven by a sincere conscience. The qualities of the believers began with prayer and concluded with prayer, indicating its lofty status in the structure of faith, as it is the most complete form of worship and devotion to God. These qualities define the character of the believers who are destined for success. They are qualities that have a decisive impact on shaping the character of the believing community and the kind of life it leads. A virtuous life befitting the human being whom God has honored and whom he has willed to rise through the ranks of perfection. He has not willed for him to live the life of animals, enjoying and consuming as cattle do, and since life on this earth does not fulfill the perfection destined for humanity, God has decreed that the believers who walk the path of faith will reach the fulfillment destined for them in the hereafter, in the gardens of paradise, the abode of eternal life without end, safety without fear, and stability without dissolution. They are the inheritors who shall inherit paradise. They shall dwell therein forever. This is the ultimate success that God has written for the believers. There is no goal beyond it to which the eye or imagination may aspire. From the qualities of the believers, the text shifts to the signs of faith in the life of the human being himself, and in his stages of existence and growth, beginning with the origin of human creation and concluding with the resurrection in the hereafter, while connecting the two lives in the context. And indeed, we created man from an essence of clay. Then we made him a drop of fluid in a secure resting place. Then we fashioned the drop into a clinging clot, and then we fashioned the clot into a lump, and then we fashioned the lump into bones, and we clothed the bones with flesh. Then we brought him forth as a new creation. So blessed is God, the best of creators. Then after that you shall surely die. Then on the day of resurrection you shall be raised up again. In the stages of this creation and in their orderly progression, there is clear evidence of the Creator's existence and of the intent and purpose behind this creation and its ultimate direction. It cannot be a fleeting coincidence, nor a random occurrence without purpose or design, for it proceeds along a path that is unerring, precise and unwavering, without deviation or error, and without taking any of the numerous other potential paths that the mind could conceive of. This human creation follows a specific path among many possible ones by the intent and design of the Creator's will, which governs this existence. The presentation of these stages in this precise, unchanging sequence points to the fact that faith in the Creator and following the way of the believers as outlined in the previous passage is the only path to attaining the perfection destined for this creation, both in this world and the next. This is the axis that connects the two passages in the flow of the Surah. And indeed we created man from an essence of clay. This verse refers to the stages of human creation without specifying them in detail. It implies that man passed through a series of stages, from clay to human. Clay is the first source or the initial stage, and man is the final stage. This is a truth that we learn from the Qur'an, and we do not seek validation for it from scientific theories that investigate the origins of man or the origins of life. The Qur'an affirms this truth to make it a subject for reflection on the craftsmanship of God and to contemplate the vast transformation from clay to this human being whose creation is linked to that clay. It does not go into detail about this transformation because such details do not concern its overarching goals. As for the scientific theories, they attempt to establish a certain evolutionary chain, connecting the links between clay and man. They are sometimes right and sometimes wrong in this endeavor, an endeavor the Quran remains silent about in its specifics. We are not to conflate the definitive truth affirmed by the Quran, the truth of the sequence, with the scientific attempts to trace the links of this sequence, which are attempts that may be right today and overturned tomorrow, as research methods and tools in the hands of man advance. The Quran sometimes expresses this truth briefly, saying, "And he began the creation of man from clay," without reference to the stages through which it passed. In such cases, the more detailed verse, which refers to the essence of clay, serves as the reference. The other verse briefly summarizes these stages for a particular reason in that context. As for how man developed from clay, the Quran remains silent, as we have said, because it is outside its intended purposes. The stages may align with what scientific theories propose, or they may not. The stages may have occurred through a different process yet unknown, due to causes and factors not yet uncovered by human beings. But the dividing line between the Quran's view of man and that of those theories is that the Quran honors man, affirming that there is within him a breath of God's Spirit, which has transformed the essence of clay into a human being, granting him those unique attributes that distinguish him from the animals. Here, the Islamic perspective diverges completely from the materialistic view, and God is the most truthful of speakers. This is the origin of the human race, from an essence of clay. As for the origin of the individual human being thereafter, it proceeds along a different, well-known path. Then we made him a drop of fluid in a secure resting place. The human race originated from an essence of clay. As for the reproduction and multiplication of its individuals, God's law has decreed that it occurs through a single drop of fluid that emerges from a man's loins and settles in a woman's womb. A single drop of fluid, or rather a single cell, out of tens of thousands of cells contained in that drop. It then settles in a secure resting place, firmly located in the womb, deep within the bones of the pelvis, protected by them from being affected by the body's movements and from many of the blows, bumps, shocks and impacts that strike the back and abdomen. The Quranic expression designates this drop of fluid as a stage in the process of human creation, following the existence of man, which is indeed a truth. But it is a strange truth that invites contemplation, for this vast human being is condensed and summarized in all his elements and attributes within that drop of fluid, just as his existence is renewed again in the embryo, so that his existence may be renewed through this wondrous condensation. From the drop of fluid to the clinging clot, when the male cell merges with the female egg and it clings to the wall of the womb, a tiny point at first, nourished by the mother's blood. From the clinging clot to the lump of flesh, when that clinging point grows and transforms into a piece of thick mixed blood. And this creation proceeds along this fixed, unerring path, its well-ordered movement never slowing. By that latent power within the cell derived from the eternal law that moves between intricate planning and precise measurement, the stage of bones arrives. Then we fashion the lump into bones, and the stage of clothing the bones with flesh follows. Then we clothe the bones with flesh. Here, man stands astonished at the truth revealed by the Qur'an about the formation of the embryo, a truth not known with precision until recently, with the advancement of embryological science. It has been established that bone cells are distinct from flesh cells, and it has been proven that bone cells form first in the embryo. Not a single flesh cell is observed until after the appearance of bone cells and the completion of the skeletal structure of the embryo. This is the truth recorded by the Quranic text. Then we fashioned the lump into bones, and we clothed the bones with flesh. Glorified is the all-knowing, the all-aware. Then we brought him forth as a new creation. This is the human being with his distinctive attributes. The human embryo resembles the animal embryo in its physical stages, but the human embryo is created as a new creation, transformed into this distinctive creature, endowed with the potential for elevation. The animal embryo, however, remains in the realm of the animal, devoid of the potential for elevation and perfection that distinguishes the human embryo. The human embryo is endowed with specific characteristics that guide it along its human path thereafter. It is created as a new creation in the final stages of its embryonic development, whereas the animal embryo remains at the level of the animal, unable to transcend its animal nature, for it is not endowed with those characteristics. Thus, the animal can never evolve into a human by mechanical progression, as materialistic theories propose. They are two different kinds, distinguished by that divine breath which turned the essence of clay into a human being. They are further distinguished by those specific characteristics that arise from that divine breath, which allows the human embryo to be created as a new creation. While humans and animals may resemble each other in their physical formation, the animal remains fixed in its place, unable to surpass it, while the human being is transformed into a new creation, capable of attaining the perfection for which he has been destined through the distinctive attributes with which God has endowed him, as a result of deliberate planning, not through mechanical evolution from one kind to another. So blessed is God, the best of creators. There is no creator but God. The phrase "the best" here does not convey a comparison, rather it denotes absolute perfection in God's creation. So blessed is God, the best of creators, who has endowed man's nature with the ability to progress through these stages, according to the law that does not change or deviate, until it brings man to the ranks of human perfection. With the utmost precision of system, people stand in awe of what they call the miracles of science, when man creates a device that follows a specific path of movement without direct human interference. But how does this compare with the journey of the embryo through its stages, its transformations, and the vast differences between one stage and another, with complete changes in its very nature? Yet people pass by these marvels with their eyes shut and their hearts closed, for the familiarity of it has made them forget its astounding and miraculous nature. Indeed, merely reflecting on the fact that this complex human being is condensed and summarized with all his attributes, characteristics, and traits within that tiny drop of fluid, and that all those attributes, characteristics, and traits grow, unfold, and progress through the stages of embryonic development until they become fully manifest in the newborn child. This alone should be enough to open the hearts to the wondrous and mysterious design. The passage continues to trace the stages of the journey and the phases of existence. Human life, which originated from the earth, doesn't end in the earth, for a non-earthly element has been infused into it, and it has entered the course of its journey. That divine breath has made its destiny different from that of the animal body, and its end is not the end of flesh and blood. Its true perfection is not attained in this earth, nor in this worldly life. Rather, it is attained in a new phase, in the life to come. Then, after that, you shall surely die. Then, on the day of resurrection, you shall be raised up again. Thus, death is not the end of earthly life, but a stage between this world and the hereafter. It is, therefore, one of the phases of human existence, not its conclusion. Then there is the resurrection, heralding the final phase of this creation. After this begins the complete life, free from the imperfections of earthly existence, free from the necessities of flesh and blood, free from fear and anxiety, free from change and transformation, for it is the culmination of the perfection destined for this human being. This is the end for those who follow the path of perfection, the path outlined in the first passage of the Surah, the path of the believers. As for those who regress in the worldly life to the level of animals, they will reach the ultimate degradation in the hereafter, where their humanity will be wasted, and they will become fuel for the fire, whose fuel is men and stones. The people of this kind are like the stones, both are the same. From the signs of faith within the human soul, the Quranic discourse transitions to signs of faith in the horizons, signs that people witness and recognize, yet pass by heedlessly. And indeed, we created above you 7 paths, and we are never unaware of the creation. And we sent down water from the sky in due measure, and caused it to settle in the earth. And verily we are able to withdraw it at any time. And with it we brought forth for you gardens of palm trees and grapevines, wherein there are many fruits for you, and from them you eat. And we brought forth a tree that grows on Mount Sinai, yielding oil and relish for those who eat. And indeed in the cattle there is a lesson for you. We give you to drink of what is in their bellies, and you have many benefits in them, and from them you eat. And upon them and upon ships you are carried. The flow of this passage continues to present these signs, linking them all together. They are tied to one another as signs of divine omnipotence and as signs of divine planning. They are harmonious in their creation, harmonious in their functions, harmonious in their purpose. All are governed by one law, all cooperate in their roles, and all are calculated with regard to the human being whom God has honoured. Thus, the Qur'an links these celestial signs with the stages of human creation in the context of the Surah. And indeed, we created above you 7 paths, and we are never unaware of the creation. The paths refer to layers, one above the other or one following the other. It might also refer to 7 celestial orbits, or 7 stellar groups like the solar system, or 7 nebular masses. Nebulae, according to astronomers, are what give rise to stellar systems. In any case, these are 7 celestial creations above humankind, creations whose level is higher than that of the earth in this vast space. God created them with design and wisdom and preserved them by a visible law. And we are never unaware of the creation. And we sent down water from the sky in due measure, and caused it to settle in the earth, and verily we are able to withdraw it at any time. Here, those 7 paths connect with the earth, for water descends from the heavens and is related to these celestial bodies. The structure of the universe in its precise order is what allows water to descend from the sky and also what allows it to settle in the earth. The theory that underground water comes from surface water, originating from rain and seeping into the earth's depths where it is stored, is a modern one. Until recently, it was thought that there was no relationship between underground water and surface water. But here is the Qur'an declaring this truth more than 1,300 years ago. And we sent down water from the sky in due measure, with wisdom and planning, no more that it would cause flooding and destruction, nor less that it would bring drought and barrenness, nor at an untimely moment when it would be lost without benefit. and caused it to settle in the earth. The water settling in the earth is akin to the seminal fluid settling in the womb, in a secure place. Both are placed there by God's decree so that life may emerge from them. This is part of the Qur'an's imagery, connecting scenes in a coordinated way. And verily we are able to withdraw it at any time. The water may sink into the farthest depths of the earth, through a fracture or fissure in the rocky layers upon which it is stored, or through other causes. He who holds it in place by his power is certainly able to make it disappear. It is only by God's grace and favour that it remains, for from water springs life. And with it we brought forth for you gardens of palm trees and grapevines, wherein there are many fruits for you, and from them you eat. The palm trees and grapevines are two examples of life that spring from water in the plant world, just as human beings arise from seminal fluid in the world of mankind. These two examples were close to the understanding of those to whom the Qur'an was first revealed, pointing to the many other kinds of life that come to being through water. And from the many other types of plants, the Qur'an singles out the olive tree. And we brought forth a tree that grows on Mount Sinai, yielding oil and relish for those who eat. This tree is among the most beneficial, providing oil, food and wood. Its closest habitat to the land of the Arabs is Mount Sinai, the sacred valley mentioned in the Qur'an. This specific location is emphasized as the olive tree grows there, nourished by the water stored in the earth and living upon it. From the world of plants, the Qur'an ascends to the world of animals. And indeed, in the cattle, there is a lesson for you. We give you to drink of what is in their bellies, and you have many benefits in them, and from them you eat, and upon them and upon ships you are carried. These creatures are subjugated to humankind by God's power and planning, and their functions and characteristics are assigned in this vast universe. They are a lesson for those who look upon them with an open heart and a perceptive mind, reflecting upon the wisdom and decree behind them. They observe how the pure, wholesome milk they drink emerges from the bellies of these creatures. It is extracted from the food they digest and process, then transformed by the milk glands into this wholesome, palatable liquid. And you have many benefits in them. The Qur'an generalizes at first, then specifies two of these benefits, and from them you eat, and upon them and upon ships you are carried. God has permitted humankind to eat from the cattle, camels, cows, sheep and goats, but has prohibited torturing them or mutilating them, for eating serves a necessary purpose in the system of life. As for torture and mutilation, they stem from a hardened heart and a corrupted nature, producing no benefit for the living. The Quranic discourse links the carrying of humans on cattle with their carrying on ships, for both are subjugated by the same cosmic order of God, which organizes the functions of all creation and coordinates the existence of all beings. The special composition of water, the special design of ships, and the special nature of air above water and ships, these are what allow vessels to float upon the surface of the water. If even one of these three elements were disrupted or altered in the slightest, navigation as humanity has known it, and still depends upon to this day, would not be possible. All of this is from the cosmic signs of faith for those who contemplate them with understanding and insight. They are closely connected to the earlier and later parts of the Surah, harmonizing with them in theme and context. And we sent Noah to his people, and he said, "O my people, worship God, you have no deity other than him. Will you not be mindful of him?" But the leaders of those who disbelieved from among his people said, "This is but a human being like yourselves, who seeks to gain superiority over you. Had God willed, he would have sent down angels. We have never heard of such a claim from our forefathers. He is but a man possessed, so wait with him for a while." Noah said, "O my sustainer, help me, for they have denied me." So we revealed to him, "Build the ark under our watchful eyes and according to our revelation. Then, when our command comes and the oven gushes forth, bring into it 2 of every kind, male and female, and your family, except those upon whom the decree has already been passed. And do not plead with me concerning those who have done wrong, for they are to be drowned." Then, When you and those with you are settled in the ark, say, "Praise be to God who has saved us from the wrongdoing people." And say, "My sustainer, let me land at a blessed landing place, for you are the best of those who bring to land." Indeed, in this there are signs, and we are ever testing humanity. Then, after them, we brought forth another generation. The discourse here moves from the signs of faith in the soul and the horizons to the essence of faith that all the messengers came with. It illustrates how people received this singular truth, which does not change throughout the ages or with the succession of revelations and messengers from the time of Noah, peace be upon him. We witness the procession of the messengers or the community of the messengers as they deliver the same word to humanity with the same meaning and direction, even though they conveyed it in different languages to their respective peoples. And yet the word spoken by Noah, peace be upon him, is the very same word, uttered with the same text by each messenger who came after him. And humanity responds with the same answer, their words almost identical across the centuries. "And we sent Noah to his people, and he said, 'O my people, worship God, you have no deity other than him. Will you not be mindful of him?' But the leaders of those who disbelieved from among his people said, 'This is but a human being like yourselves, who seeks to gain superiority over you. Had God willed, he would have sent down angels. We have never heard of such a claim from our forefathers.'" The word of truth does not change. It is the foundation upon which existence rests, and everything in the universe bears witness to it. Will you not be mindful of him? Do you not fear the consequences of denying the primal truth upon which all other truths rest? Do you not feel the enormity of denying this self-evident truth, and what punishment awaits those who refuse it? But the disbelieving leaders of his people do not engage with this word of truth. They do not contemplate its signs. Instead, they are unable to rise above their narrow focus on their own selves and on Noah, the man who calls them to the truth. They cannot elevate themselves to the lofty horizon from which they can see the magnitude of this truth, unburdened by personalities and egos. Thus, they ignore the great truth upon which the very existence of the universe depends, and instead speak only of Noah as a man. But the leaders of those who disbelieved from among his people said, "This is but a human being like yourselves, who seeks to gain superiority over you." From this narrow, petty perspective, they view the great call, and thus they cannot comprehend its nature, nor can they perceive its truth. Their small, insignificant selves blind them to its essence, obscure its light, and stand as a barrier between their hearts and the truth. To them, the whole issue appears to be that a man, no different from them, seeks to elevate himself over them and claim a higher status. In their small-minded rush to dismiss Noah's claim to a higher status, which they imagine he seeks through his claim of prophethood, they do not merely reject Noah's honor. They reject the honor of the entire human race, refusing to acknowledge God's elevation of this species, and deem it too much that God should send a messenger from among them, if he must send one at all. Had God willed, he would have sent down angels. They cannot find within their spirits that divine breath which links humankind to the celestial realm, enabling the chosen among them to receive that divine outpouring, to bear it and to carry it to their fellow human beings, guiding them to its radiant source. And they defer the matter to past precedents rather than using their reason to reflect. "We have never heard of such a claim from our forefathers." Such is always the case when tradition stifles the movement of thought and the freedom of the heart. People no longer contemplate the issues before them, seeking to reach a direct judgment based on reality. Instead, they search through the accumulated rubble of the past for a precedent to rely on. If they find no precedent, they reject the matter and cast it aside. Among such stagnant, lifeless groups, if something happened once, it can happen again. But if something has never happened before, then it cannot happen. Thus, life is frozen its movement comes to a halt, and its steps are fixed in place by a single generation of our forefathers. And yet, instead of realizing their own rigidity and petrification, such people accuse the advocates of freedom and progress of madness. They call upon them to reflect and ponder, to open their hearts to the signs of faith that speak eloquently in the universe. But in response to this call, they only boast and accuse, "He is but a man possessed, so wait with him for a while." Wait until death takes him and relieves you of him, his message, and his persistence in urging you to accept this new word. At this point, Noah, peace be upon him, found no refuge from their mockery and harm, no escape from their hardened, petrified hearts, except to turn to his sustainer alone, complaining to him of their rejection and asking for his help in the face of their denial. He said, "O my sustainer, help me, for they have denied me." When living souls become frozen in this way, and life itself seeks to move forward along its divinely ordained path toward perfection, but finds these hardened obstacles in its way, then either these petrified things must be shattered, or life must leave them behind and move on. In the case of Noah's people, it was the former that occurred, for they were living at the dawn of humanity, at the very beginning of the road. And so God's will decreed that they be swept away from the path. So we revealed to him, "Build the ark under our watchful eyes and according to our revelation." Then, when our command comes and the oven gushes forth, bring into it 2 of every kind, male and female, and your family, except those upon whom the decree has already been passed. And do not plead with me concerning those who have done wrong, for they are to be drowned. Thus God's way proceeded in clearing the path of the hardened obstacles, so that life could continue on its ordained course. Since humanity had stagnated in the time of Noah, frozen like a young tree, stifled by disease, unable to grow, the remedy had to be the flood, sweeping away all things, washing away all things, cleansing the earth for new, healthy life to begin again, for life to grow tall and strong until its time. So, we revealed to him, "Build the ark under our watchful eyes and according to our revelation." The ark was the means of salvation from the flood, preserving the seeds of healthy life so they could be planted anew. God willed that Noah himself should build the ark with his own hands, for humankind must always take the means, using the tools at their disposal, exhausting all their efforts, to be worthy of God's help. Divine aid does not come to those who sit back, resting comfortably, waiting without striving. Noah was destined by God to be the second father of humankind, and he was thus driven to take the means, even as God watched over him and taught him how to build the ark, so that God's command might be fulfilled, and his will realized through this path. And God set for him a sign to begin the process of purifying the corrupted face of the earth. When our command comes, and the oven overflows, and water gushes forth from it, that is the sign for Noah to hasten. He must carry in the ark the seeds of life. Take therein 2 of every pair, creatures of animals, birds, and plants known to Noah in that time and accessible to humankind. But as for your family, save only those upon whom the word has already been passed, those who disbelieved and denied the truth, and thus were deserving of God's prior decree, his immutable law, which is destruction for those who deny the signs of God. The final command was given to Noah, not to plead for anyone, nor attempt to save anyone, even if they be the closest to him, among those upon whom the decree had already been passed. "And do not plead with me concerning those who have done wrong. Verily they are to be drowned." For God's law does not show favoritism, nor does it deviate from its straight path for the sake of a beloved or a close relative. Here the fate of the people is not detailed after this command. The matter has been decided, and it has been decreed. They are to be drowned. Instead, the narrative moves on to teaching Noah, peace be upon him, how to express gratitude for his sustainer's grace, how to praise his bounty, and how to seek his guidance along the right path. "And when you and those with you are settled upon the ark, say, 'Praise be to God who has saved us from the wrong-doing people.' And say, 'My sustainer, grant me a blessed landing, for you are the best of those who bring to land.'" Thus God is praised, and thus one turns to him, acknowledging his attributes and recognizing his signs. And thus do his servants, led by the prophets, display proper conduct toward him, so that they might serve as an example for others. Then the Quran reflects upon the entire story and upon the steps that reveal signs of divine power and wisdom. Indeed, in this are signs, and indeed we are ever testing humanity. Tests come in many forms: tests of patience, tests of gratitude, tests for reward, tests for guidance, tests for discipline, tests for purification, and tests for correction. In the story of Noah, there are various forms of trials for Noah, for his people, and for his descendants to come. The narrative then transitions to another scene from the repeated history of divine messages and the recurrent denial of those messages. Then, after them, we raised up another generation. And we sent to them a messenger from among themselves, saying, "Worship God, you have no deity other than Him. Will you not be mindful?" But the leaders of his people, those who disbelieved and denied the meeting of the hereafter, and whom we had graced with ease in the life of this world, said, "This is but a human being like yourselves, eating of what you eat and drinking of what you drink. If you were to obey a human like yourselves, then surely you would be losers. Does he promise you that when you die and become dust and bones, you will be brought forth again? Far, far is that which you are promised. There is nothing but our life in this world. We die and we live, and we shall not be resurrected. He is but a man who has fabricated a lie against God, and we are not believers in him." No sooner had the prophet been denied than he turned to his sustainer for help, just as Noah had done before him. And in nearly the same words he called out, "O my sustainer, help me, for they have denied me." And the response came, "Soon they will be filled with regret." But this regret would come when it was of no benefit, when repentance availed them not. Then the blast of truth seized them, and we made them like scum, so away with the wrongdoing people. The word scum here refers to what is carried away by a rushing torrent, worthless debris scattered and of no value. These people, having abandoned the noble qualities with which God had honoured them, and having forgotten the wisdom of their existence in this worldly life, severed their link with the higher realm. In their heedlessness, they no longer possessed anything to merit God's favour. Thus, they became like the scum carried away by the flood, discarded without ceremony or concern. This is one of the unique expressions of the precise Quranic language, and to add to their humiliation, they were banished from God's mercy and from the concern of humankind. So away with the wrongdoing people, away from mercy in this life and away from remembrance in the hearts of people, in the realm of reality and in the realm of consciousness. The narrative continues with an overview of the generations that followed. Then we raised up after them other generations. No nation can hasten its term, nor can they delay it. Then we sent our messengers one after another. Every time a messenger came to his people, they denied him. So we caused them to follow one another in destruction, and we made them mere tales. So away with the people who do not believe. In these brief, eloquent words, the Quran summarizes the history of divine messages, affirming God's ongoing law through the long span of time between Noah and Hud at the beginning of the chain, and Moses and Jesus at the end. Each generation fulfills its appointed term and passes on. No nation can hasten its term, nor can they delay it. And every one of them denied the messenger sent to them. Every time a messenger came to his people, they denied him. And every time they rejected the truth, God's law took its course. So we caused them to follow one another in destruction. And their end remains a lesson for those who reflect. We made them mere tales. Their memory became mere stories recounted by later generations. So away with the people who do not believe. The Quran then briefly recounts the story of Moses and Aaron to align with the theme of the Surah and its intended message. Then we sent Moses and his brother Aaron with our signs and clear authority to Pharaoh and his chiefs. But they were arrogant and were a haughty people. They said, "Shall we believe in two human beings like ourselves, while their people are our slaves?" So they denied them, and thus they were among the destroyed. Here, the same objection to the humanity of the messengers is raised. Shall we believe in two human beings like ourselves? And the Quran points to the specific context of the Israelites' subjugation in Egypt, while their people are our slaves, subjugated and made to work under Pharaoh's rule. This made Pharaoh and his chiefs even more dismissive of Moses and Aaron. As for God's signs and the clear authority brought by Moses and Aaron, these had no impact on their hardened hearts, hearts that were drowned in the false values and fleeting concerns of this world. The Qur'an then briefly mentions Jesus, son of Mary, and his mother, highlighting the miraculous nature of his birth, which, like the signs given to Moses, was denied by the disbelievers. And we gave Moses the book that they might be guided. And we made the son of Mary and his mother a sign, and we sheltered them on a high ground, a place of rest and flowing water. There are differing interpretations regarding the location of this high ground. Was it in Egypt, Damascus, or Jerusalem? These are among the places where, according to their own scriptures, Mary went with her son during his infancy and youth. However, the exact location is not the point of focus here. What matters is the indication that God provided them with a good place, where plants flourished, water flowed, and they found care and protection. As the Qur'an reaches this point in the series of revelations, it addresses the community of messengers directly, as if they are all gathered together in one place and one time. The differences in time and place are rendered irrelevant when faced with the unity of the truth that binds them all. O messengers, eat of the good things and do righteous deeds. Verily I am aware of what you do. And truly this community of yours is one community, and I am your sustainer, so be mindful of me. It is a call to the messengers to live their human nature, which the heedless ones deny, eat of the good things. For eating is a necessity of human life. But eating of the good things is what elevates this humanity, purifies it, and links it to the higher realm. And it is a call to them to do good upon the earth and do righteous deeds, for action is also a requirement of human life. But righteous action is what distinguishes the righteous among humanity and gives their deeds purpose, direction, and a higher goal, one that connects them to the divine realm. The messenger is not required to abandon his human nature, but rather to elevate it to the noble heights intended by God. The prophets are the pioneers of this path, the highest examples to be followed, and God is the one who measures their deeds with his precise balance. Verily, I am aware of what you do. The boundaries of time and space dissolve before the unity of the truth that the messengers brought, the unity of their nature, the unity of the Creator who sent them, and the unity of the direction they all followed. Truly, this community of yours is one community, and I am your sustainer, so be mindful of me. Yet they divided their religion among themselves into sects, each faction rejoicing in what it possessed. So leave them in their jahiliyyah until a time. Do they think that what we provide them of wealth and children is meant to hasten for them the good things? Nay, they perceive not. Those who are truly mindful of their sustainer are filled with awe at his majesty, and those who believe in his signs and who associate none with their sustainer, and who give what they give while their hearts tremble with the knowledge that they will return to their sustainer. These are the ones who hasten toward good deeds, and they are the foremost in attaining them. We do not burden any soul beyond its capacity, and with us is a book that speaks the truth, and they will not be wronged. But their hearts are in jahiliyyah of this, and they have deeds besides this which they continue to do, until when we seize their affluent ones with punishment, behold, they cry for help. Do not cry for help today, indeed you will not be helped by us. My signs were recited to you, but you turned back on your heels, arrogantly mocking them in your nightly gatherings, speaking evil against them. Have they not reflected upon the word, or did something come to them that did not come to their forefathers of old? Or is it that they do not recognize their messenger, so they deny him? Do they say he is possessed? Nay, he has brought them the truth, but most of them hate the truth. Had the truth followed their desires, the heavens and the earth and all within them would surely have been corrupted. But we have brought them their reminder, and they are turning away from their reminder. Do you ask them for payment? But the reward of your sustainer is better, and he is the best of providers. Verily you call them to a straight path. But those who do not believe in the hereafter are surely deviating from the path. If we had mercy on them and removed their affliction, they would still persist in their transgression, wandering blindly. And we have already seized them with punishment, but they did not humble themselves before their sustainer, nor did they supplicate to him. Until when we open upon them a gate of severe punishment, behold, they are in utter despair. It is he who created for you hearing, sight, and hearts, yet little are you grateful, and it is he who has spread you throughout the earth, and to him you will be gathered. And it is he who gives life and causes death, and to him belongs the alternation of night and day. Will you not then understand? But they say the same as the ancients said, when we die and become dust and bones, shall we truly be resurrected? We and our forefathers were promised this before. These are nothing but fables of the ancients. Say, to whom belongs the earth and all that is in it, if you know? They will say, to God. Say, will you not then remember? Say, who is the sustainer of the seven heavens and the sustainer of the mighty throne? They will say, to God. Say, will you not then fear him? Say, in whose hand is the dominion of all things, and he protects, while none can be protected against him, if you know? They will say, it is God's. Say, then how are you deluded? We have certainly brought them the truth, but they are surely liars. God has not taken a son, nor is there any God with him. Otherwise each God would have taken away what he created, and some would have tried to overpower others. Glorified is God above what they attribute to him. He is the knower of the unseen and the seen, and exalted is he above what they associate with him. Say, my sustainer, if you should show me what they are promised, then do not place me among the wrong-doing people. And indeed, we are able to show you what we have promised them. Repel evil with that which is better. We are most knowing of what they describe, and say, my sustainer, I seek refuge in you from the incitements of the devils, and I seek refuge in you, my sustainer, lest they be present with me. This is the third lesson in the Surah, which begins by depicting the condition of humanity after the era of the messengers. It illustrates the state in which the last messenger found them, divided and disputing over the singular truth that had been brought to them by all the messengers before him. It portrays their heedlessness towards the truth that the seal of the messengers, peace and blessings be upon him, brought to them, and their immersion in a state that blinds them to the consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, the believers worship God, perform righteous deeds, and yet despite this, they remain fearful of the ultimate end, with hearts trembling in awe as they realize they are returning to their sustainer. Thus, we are shown the contrast between the wakefulness and cautiousness of the believing soul and the heedlessness and oblivion of the disbelieving soul. The surah then takes them through various stages, at times expressing astonishment at their stance, at times addressing their doubts, and at other times touching their hearts with signs of faith, both within themselves and in the horizons. It also engages them with their own assumptions, turning them into arguments against them. After these rounds, it leaves them to their inevitable fate, and the discourse turns to the messenger of God, peace be upon him, urging him to continue on his path, without anger at their obstinacy, to repel evil with good, and to seek refuge in God from the devils who lead them astray into manifest error. But they have torn their affair into fragments, each party rejoicing in what they have. So leave them in their immersion until a time. Do they think that we are hastening good things to them by granting them wealth and children? Nay, they do not perceive. The messengers, peace be upon them, came as one community, with one word, one worship, and one direction. Yet the people after them became divided into factions, having no common path or methodology. The Quranic expression vividly portrays this division as a violent, tangible act. They tore their matter apart, ripping it into shreds, each group departing with a piece in their hands, rejoicing over it as if it were the whole. They continued on, not reflecting or considering anything else, closing off all avenues of insight or light. They lived in this state of immersion, lost in their preoccupations, oblivious to any life-giving breath or illuminating ray. As this image is drawn for them, the address turns to the messenger, peace be upon him. So leave them in their immersion until a time. Leave them lost in this immersion, heedless and preoccupied with what they are doing until the moment of their inevitable fate arrives. The discourse then mocks and ridicules their state of heedlessness, as they think that the respite given to them and the provision of wealth and children during this period of testing is a sign of favour and divine grace. Do they think that we are hastening good things to them by granting them wealth and children? Nay, they do not perceive. It is but a trial, a test. They do not realize what lies behind the wealth and children, an ominous fate and overwhelming evil. Alongside this image of heedlessness and immersion in the hearts of the disbelievers, there rises the image of wakefulness and caution in the hearts of the believers. Indeed, those who are in awe of their sustainer, those who believe in the signs of their sustainer, those who do not associate anything with their sustainer, those who give what they give while their hearts are fearful, knowing that they are to return to their sustainer, those are the ones who hasten to good deeds, and they are the foremost in them. Here, we see the effect of faith in the heart, sensitivity, refinement, caution, and striving for perfection, always mindful of consequences, no matter how diligently one fulfills obligations and duties. These believers are in awe of their sustainer, with reverence and piety. They believe in his signs and do not associate anything with him. They fulfill their duties and obligations, doing as much good as they can. Yet despite all this, they give what they give while their hearts are fearful of returning to their sustainer, feeling inadequate in their service to him, and viewing their efforts as insufficient. Aisha, may God be pleased with her, once asked, "O Messenger of God, are those who give what they give while their hearts are fearful the ones who steal, commit adultery and drink alcohol, yet fear God?" The Prophet, peace be upon him, replied, "No, O daughter of Al-Siddiq. They are the ones who pray, fast and give charity, yet fear God." Indeed, the heart of the believer recognizes God's hand in everything and feels his blessings in every breath, in every heartbeat. Thus they belittle their acts of worship and consider their obedience insignificant in light of God's immense blessings. Likewise, they feel the majesty and grandeur of God with every fibre of their being, and they are ever mindful of his presence in all things around them. Therefore, they are filled with awe, fearing to meet God while falling short of their due obligations, feeling that their worship and obedience do not come close to repaying his countless favours and blessings. These are the ones who hasten to good deeds, who are foremost in them, driven by their wakefulness, their striving, their actions and their obedience. They are not like those who live in heedlessness, thinking that the blessings they enjoy are meant exclusively for them, like a heedless prey, lured into its fatal trap by an enticing bait. There are many such people among humanity, overwhelmed by ease, distracted by blessings, intoxicated by wealth, and blinded by pride, until they meet their inevitable fate. This wakefulness that Islam instills in the heart of the believer, which faith awakens as soon as it takes root in the heart, is not beyond human capacity, nor is it a burden too heavy to bear. Rather, it is the sensitivity that arises from the awareness of God and the connection with him, from the constant mindfulness of his presence, both in secret and in public. It is within the scope of human capability, as long as that radiant light shines within. We do not burden any soul beyond its capacity, and with us is a record that speaks the truth, and they will not be wronged. God has prescribed duties in accordance with what he knows of the soul's capacities, and he will hold them accountable based on what they do within their abilities. They will not be wronged by being burdened with what they cannot bear, nor by being deprived of any of their due rewards. Everything they do is recorded in a record that speaks the truth, and God is the best of judges. The heedless, however, remain oblivious because their hearts are immersed in delusion, untouched by the life-giving light of truth, preoccupied with other matters, and lost in their wandering until they awaken to the horror that awaits them, only to encounter the painful punishment along with reproach and humiliation. Nay, their hearts are in a state of jahiliyyah regarding this, and they have deeds besides that which they are doing. Until, when we seize their affluent ones with punishment, behold, they cry out for help. Do not cry out for help today, you will not be aided by us. My signs were indeed recited to you, But you used to turn back on your heels in arrogance, conversing by night, speaking evil words. Their rush into what they are immersed in is not because they are burdened beyond their capacity, but rather because their hearts are in a state of jahiliyyah. They cannot see the truth that the Qur'an brings, and they are rushing down a path other than the one it lays out for them. And they have deeds besides that which they are doing. Then the scene shifts to depict their sudden realization of the impending catastrophe. Until when we seize their affluent ones with punishment, behold, they cry out for help. The affluent ones are the most immersed in indulgence, deviation, and heedlessness regarding their fate. Suddenly they are seized by punishment, and they raise their voices, crying out for mercy and seeking relief. This contrasts with their previous affluence, heedlessness, arrogance, and pride. Then comes the stern rebuke. Do not cry out for help today. You will not be aided by us. The scene unfolds before us as they receive this harsh rebuke, stripped of all hope of help or rescue, and reminded of how they used to behave in their state of heedlessness. My signs were indeed recited to you, but you used to turn back on your heels in arrogance, conversing by night, speaking evil words. They would retreat on their heels as if what was being recited to them was a danger they were fleeing from, or something they despised and sought to avoid. They would arrogantly refuse to submit to the truth, and worse still, they would speak evil words about the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the message he brought during their nightly gatherings. Indeed, they would openly utter vile words and foul language in their gatherings, surrounding their idols in their nocturnal gatherings at the Kaaba. The Qur'an thus paints a vivid picture of their accountability for their actions as they cry out for help, only to be reminded of their depraved conversations and vile speech. The scene feels as if it is happening in the present moment, as though they are witnessing and living it. This is the way of the Qur'an, to depict scenes of the Day of Judgment as though they are unfolding before one's very eyes. In their attacks on the Messenger, peace be upon him, and the Qur'an in their gatherings and conversations, the disbelievers reflected ignorant pride, unable to perceive the value of the truth due to the blindness of their hearts. They turned the truth into an object of mockery and ridicule, just as ignorant people in every age have done. The Jahiliyyah of the Arabs was but one manifestation of the many forms of Jahiliyyah that have appeared throughout history, and which continue to re-emerge in various forms to this day. The discourse then shifts from the scene of reproach in the afterlife, returning to the present world to question and express amazement at their strange attitude. What prevents them from believing in the message brought to them by their trustworthy messenger? What doubts stir within their hearts, causing them to turn away from guidance? What is their excuse for rejecting it and speaking ill of it in their nightly gatherings, when it is the pure, unadulterated truth and the straight path? Have they not pondered over the word? Or has something come to them that did not come to their forefathers? Or do they not recognize their messenger? So they deny him, or do they say he is possessed? Nay, he has brought them the truth, but most of them detest the truth. How could anyone who reflects on what Muhammad, peace be upon him, has brought remain indifferent to it? It contains beauty, perfection, harmony, and a powerful attraction that resonates with human nature. It touches the heart and nourishes the mind. It offers profound spiritual nourishment, intellectual sustenance, and a grand vision of life. It presents a straight path with clear objectives and a flawless legal system. It contains everything that stirs the inner depths of human nature and fulfills its needs. Have they not pondered over the word? This is the secret behind their turning away from it. They have not pondered over it. Or has something come to them that did not come to their forefathers? Was it something unprecedented in their tradition that a prophet would come to them? Or that he would bring a message of monotheism? History clearly shows that all the messengers came to their people one after another, each of them calling to the same message that this messenger is now calling them to. Or do they not recognize their messenger, so they deny him? Is this the reason for their rejection and denial? Yet they know their messenger well. They know his person, his lineage, and his character better than anyone else. They know of his truthfulness and trustworthiness, to the extent that they named him the trustworthy long before his prophethood. Or do they say he is possessed? Some of their foolish ones would say this, even though they knew well that he was the most intelligent and rational, a man who had never been known to falter throughout his long life. None of these doubts have any real basis. The truth is, most of them detest the truth because it strips them of their false values, which they have clung to for so long, and it clashes with their deeply ingrained desires, which they cherish. Nay, he has brought them the truth, but most of them detest the truth. The truth cannot follow whims and desires. It is by truth that the heavens and the earth are sustained, and by truth that the laws of nature remain steady, and the laws that govern the universe and everything within it operate in harmony. If the truth were to follow their desires, the heavens and the earth and all within them would have been corrupted. The truth is singular and unwavering, while desires are many and ever-changing. The universe is governed by this singular, unchanging truth, and its laws do not deviate for any passing whim or temporary desire. If the universe were to submit to these fleeting desires, it would fall into chaos, and all existence along with it. People, values, systems, and all measures of right and wrong would be left swaying between anger and satisfaction, love and hatred, longing and fear, activity and lethargy, and all the other emotions, impulses, and reactions. The physical structure and purpose of the universe requires stability, constancy, and adherence to a fixed basis and a well-defined path that remains unchanging and unwavering. From this grand principle that governs the universe, Islam has established its legal system for human life as part of the overarching cosmic order. This system is overseen by the same hand that governs the entire universe and coordinates all its parts. Humanity is but one part of this vast cosmos, subject to its grand laws. Thus, it is only fitting that the one who legislates for this part of the universe is the same one who legislates for the whole, ensuring that human life is in harmony with the rest of creation. In this way, human life is not subjected to fleeting desires which would lead to corruption and imbalance. If the truth were to follow their desires, the heavens and the earth and all within them would have been corrupted. Rather, human life is subject to the overarching truth, to the governing order established by the one who governs all affairs. This Ummah, to whom Islam was sent, was the most deserving of following the truth that was embodied in it. Beyond the fact that it is the truth, it also brought them honor and a name. Without it, they had no mention in the annals of history. Nay, we have brought them their reminder, but they turn away from their reminder. The Arab nation had no place in the history of the world until Islam came to them. As long as they clung to it, their name echoed through the ages. When they abandoned it, their significance faded, and they became of no consequence. Their name will only rise again when they return to their great banner. After this digression, prompted by their rejection of the truth that had come to them, the discourse returns to express astonishment at their stance, and to refute the doubts that might be preventing them from accepting the message brought by their trustworthy messenger. Or do you ask them for a reward? Are they fleeing from your guidance and teaching because you demand a payment from them? You ask nothing of them, for what is with your sustainer is far better than what they possess. The reward of your sustainer is better, and he is the best of providers. What could a prophet hope to gain from weak, impoverished human beings when he is connected to the divine source that never depletes or diminishes? Indeed, what could the followers of a prophet hope to gain from the fleeting goods of this world when their hearts and hopes are fixed on what is with God, who provides both in abundance and in scarcity? When the heart is connected to God, the entire universe, with all its inhabitants, is diminished in significance. Indeed, you seek only to guide them to the straight path, and indeed you call them to a straight path, a path that connects them to the order that governs their innate nature and the universe, leading them on the journey of existence towards the Creator of all that exists, in a straight line that never deviates. But alas, they, like all those who do not believe in the hereafter, are veering away from this path. And indeed, those who do not believe in the hereafter are deviating from the path. Had they been rightly guided, they would have followed with their hearts and minds the stages of creation that inevitably lead to belief in the hereafter and in the world that allows for the achievement of the possible perfection and the realization of the ordained justice. For the hereafter is but a link in the grand cosmic order that God has chosen to govern this existence. These are the ones who do not believe in the hereafter, those who have strayed from the path. Neither the trial of blessings nor the trial of calamity benefits them. When they are touched by blessings, they assume that the wealth and children we provide for them are hastening good things for them. And when calamity befalls them, their hearts do not soften, nor do their consciences awaken, nor do they return to God in humility, pleading for him to remove their affliction. They remain like this until the severe punishment overwhelms them on the day of judgment, leaving them bewildered and despairing. Even if we were to show them mercy and remove their affliction, they would persist in their transgression, wandering blindly in their arrogance. Indeed, we have already seized them with punishment, but they did not humble themselves before their sustainer, nor did they plead with him. Only when we opened upon them a gate of severe torment did they fall into utter despair. This is a general description of that kind of people, the ones whose hearts have hardened, who are heedless of God, and who deny the hereafter. Among them are the polytheists who confronted the messenger of God. Peace and blessings be upon him. Submission and humility at the time of affliction are signs of returning to God and recognizing that he is the refuge and the sanctuary. When the heart connects to God in this way, it softens and becomes tender, awakening to remembrance. Such sensitivity acts as a protective guard, preventing heedlessness and error. One benefits from trials and draws lessons from afflictions, but when one persists in arrogance, lost in delusion, they are beyond hope, with no prospect of reform. Such a person is left to the punishment of the hereafter, which will suddenly overtake them, leaving them trapped and bewildered, utterly despairing of any escape. Then the discourse takes them on another journey, hoping to awaken their consciousness to the signs of faith within themselves and in the horizons around them. And it is he who created for you hearing, sight, and hearts. Little are you grateful. And it is he who spread you upon the earth, and to him you will be gathered. And it is he who gives life and causes death, and to him belongs the alternation of night and day. Will you not then understand? If human beings were to reflect upon their own creation, their form and the faculties they have been endowed with, the senses, the organs, the capabilities, they would inevitably find God and be guided to him through these wonders, which testify that he is the one and only Creator. For no one but God can bring into existence such miraculous creation, whether small or great. Consider hearing alone. How does it function? How does it capture sound and make sense of it? Consider sight. How does it see? How does it capture light and images? And what of the heart? What is it? How does it grasp meaning? How does it assess things, shapes, ideas, values, feelings, and insights? Merely understanding the nature of these senses and faculties and how they work is, in itself, a miraculous discovery in the human realm. How much more miraculous, then, is their creation and their intricate design, which is perfectly aligned with the nature of the universe in which man lives. This harmony is so precise that if even one element of it were to become imbalanced, whether in the nature of the universe or the nature of man, the connection would be lost. No ear would be able to hear a sound, no eye would be able to capture a light. But the guiding power has aligned the nature of man with the nature of the universe, enabling this connection. Yet humankind is ungrateful for this blessing. Little are you grateful. Gratitude begins with recognizing the giver of the blessing, glorifying him for his attributes and worshipping him alone, the one whose oneness is testified by his creation. Gratitude continues by using these senses and faculties to savor life and its pleasures with the heart of a servant who worships God in every action and every joy. And it is he who spread you upon the earth. He made you stewards upon it, after having endowed you with hearing, sight, and hearts, and equipped you with the necessary faculties and energies for this stewardship. And to him you will be gathered, to be held accountable for what you have brought forth in this stewardship, whether good or evil, righteousness or corruption, guidance or misguidance. You are not created in vain nor left without purpose. Rather, everything is governed by wisdom, planning and decree, and it is He who gives life and causes death. Life and death are events that occur every moment. Only God possesses the power over life and death. Even the most advanced of creatures, humankind, is utterly incapable of instilling life into a single cell, and equally incapable of taking life in its true sense from any living being. The one who gives life is the only one who knows its secret, the only one who can grant it and take it back. Human beings may be the instruments or causes of extinguishing life, but they do not truly strip the living of their life. It is God alone who gives life and causes death, without any partner or rival. And to Him belongs the alternation of night and day. He alone controls it and governs it just as He controls life and death. This is a cosmic law, just like the law of life and death. Life and death occur in souls and bodies, while the alternation of night and day occurs in the universe and its celestial bodies. Just as He takes life from a living being, causing its body to fade and grow still, so too does He withdraw light from the earth, causing it to grow dark and silent. Then life returns, and light returns, each alternating with the other without cessation or interruption, except when God wills it. Will you not then understand? Will you not perceive all the signs within this, which point to the Creator, the Sustainer, and the one who alone governs the universe and life? At this point, the discourse turns away from directly addressing or debating them, and instead recounts their words regarding resurrection and accountability after all these signs and proofs. But they say, as the former people said, they say, "When we have died and become dust and bones, will we indeed be resurrected? We were promised this before, we and our forefathers. This is nothing but tales of the ancients." This statement appears strange and shocking after all the signs and proofs that speak of God's governance and wisdom in creation. He has endowed human beings with hearing, sight and hearts, making them responsible for their actions and deeds, and they will be recompensed for their righteousness or corruption. True recompense will be realized in the hereafter, for in this world reward and punishment are not always immediate. They are deferred to an appointed time in the hereafter. God gives life and causes death, so there is nothing difficult about resurrection. Life is constantly emerging, created from places unknown to any but God. Yet, these people are not content with their limited understanding of God's wisdom and His power over resurrection. Instead, they mock what they are promised regarding resurrection and judgment, simply because it was promised to them and their forefathers before, and it has not yet occurred. We were promised this before, we and our forefathers. This is nothing but tales of the ancients. But resurrection is set for its appointed time, determined by God's wisdom and planning. It neither advances nor delays to satisfy the demands of any generation of people, nor does it respond to the mockery of the heedless and the blind. The polytheists of Arabia were confused in their belief. They did not deny God, nor did they deny that He is the master of the heavens and the earth, the sustainer of the heavens and the earth, and the one who governs the heavens and the earth. Yet despite this, they associated with Him false deities, claiming that they worship these idols only to bring them closer to God, even attributing daughters to Him. Exalted is He beyond what they describe. Here God takes them at their own admissions to correct their confused beliefs and guide them back to the pure monotheism that their own admissions should lead them to, if they were to remain steadfast upon their innate nature and not deviate from it. Say, to whom belongs the earth and whoever is in it, if you know? They will say, to God. Say, will you not then remember? Say, who is the sustainer of the seven heavens and the sustainer of the great throne? They will say, to God. Say, will you not then fear Him? Say, in whose hand is the dominion of everything, while He protects and none can be protected against Him? If you know, they will say, to God. Say, how then are you deluded? This debate reveals the extent of the confusion that does not rely on logic, nor does it rest on reason. It exposes the depths of corruption to which the beliefs of the polytheists in the Arabian Peninsula had sunk by the time Islam was born. Say, to whom belongs the earth and whoever is in it, if you know? This is a question about the ownership of the earth and all that is within it. They will say, to God. Yet despite this, they do not remember this truth when they turn in worship to other than God. Say, will you not then remember? Say, who is the sustainer of the seven heavens and the sustainer of the great throne? This is a question about the sustainership that governs, sustains, and controls the seven heavens and the great throne. The seven heavens could refer to seven celestial spheres, seven stellar systems, seven nebulae, or seven worlds. The throne symbolizes dominion and authority over all existence. Who is the sustainer of the seven heavens and the sustainer of the great throne? They will say, to God. Yet despite this, they do not fear the sustainer of the throne, nor do they show reverence for the sustainer of the seven heavens, while they associate with him idols that are weak and powerless, lying helpless on the ground. Say, will you not then fear him? Say, in whose hand is the dominion of everything, while he protects and none can be protected against him if you know? This is a question about ultimate control, power, and sovereignty. Who holds dominion over everything, exercising absolute authority and control over creation? Who's the one who grants protection to whomever he wills and none can protect against him? Who is the one who rescues from harm those whom he chooses, such that none can harm them? They will say to God. So why do they turn away from worshipping God alone? Why do their minds falter and stumble as if they are possessed by sorcery? Say, how then are you deluded? Indeed, it is the confusion and disorientation that afflicts those who have been bewitched. In the perfect moment to affirm the truth that the messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, brought them, and to refute their claims of associating partners and children with God, the discourse delivers a decisive statement. No, we have brought them the truth, and indeed they are liars. God has not taken any son, nor is there any God with him. Were there many gods, each God would have taken away what he created, and some would have tried to dominate others. Exalted is God above what they describe. He is the knower of the unseen and the seen, and he is exalted above what they associate with him. This decisive statement comes in several forms, dismissing their arguments and affirming their falsehood. No, we have brought them the truth, and indeed they are liars. Then it clarifies the specific falsehood they are guilty of. God has not taken any son, nor is there any God with him. Then it presents the rational proof that refutes their claim and illustrates the absurdity and impossibility of the idea of associating partners with God. Were there many gods, each God would have taken away what he created. Each God would have seized control over what he had created, managing it according to his own law. The universe would then be divided, with every part governed by a different law, and some would have tried to dominate others. Each god would have sought to assert his dominance and control over the others, leading to conflict and disorder. But none of this exists in the universe, whose harmonious unity testifies to the oneness of its creator and whose consistent law testifies to the oneness of its sustainer. Exalted is God above what they describe. He is the knower of the unseen and the seen, and he is exalted above what they associate with him. Only God knows the unseen and the seen, and nothing in creation can exist independently from him. He is far beyond the partners they falsely attribute to him. At this juncture, the discourse turns away from addressing and debating them, and instead directs the messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, to seek refuge in his sustainer, asking that he not be counted among these people, if it is decreed that he should witness the fulfillment of the punishment that has been promised to them. He is also instructed to seek refuge from the devils, so that his soul may not be disturbed, nor his heart constricted by what they say. Say, my sustainer, if you show me what they are promised, my sustainer, then do not place me among the wrongdoing people, and we are fully capable of showing you what we have promised them. Repel evil with that which is better. We are most knowing of what they describe. And say, my sustainer, I seek refuge with you from the incitements of the devils, and I seek refuge with you, my sustainer, lest they be present with me. The messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, is protected from ever being counted among the wrongdoing people when the painful punishment befalls them, and when the promise made to them is fulfilled. Yet this supplication is an additional precaution and a teaching for those who come after him, that they should never feel secure from God's plans, and that they should remain ever vigilant, always seeking refuge in his protection. God is fully capable of fulfilling the promise made to the wrongdoers during the lifetime of the messenger. Peace and blessings be upon him. And we are fully capable of showing you what we have promised them. Indeed, he showed him some of what was promised during the Battle of Badr, and again during the Great Conquest. At the time of the revelation of this surah, while still in Mecca, the method of the call was to repel evil with that which is better, to be patient until God's command came, and to leave all matters to him. Repel evil with that which is better. We are most knowing of what they describe. The messengers, peace and blessings be upon him, seeking refuge from the incitements of the devils, despite being infallible, is also an additional precaution and a further reliance on God, and a teaching for his community, for he is their role model and guide. It teaches them that they must always seek protection from the incitements of devils at all times. Indeed, the messenger is even directed to seek God's protection from the mere presence of the devils, not only from their incitements, and I seek refuge with you, my sustainer, lest they be present with me. It is possible that this supplication is particularly related to the moment of death. This interpretation is supported by what follows in the context. Until when death comes to one of them, he says, "My sustainer, send me back, that I might do righteousness in that which I left behind." No, it is but a word he speaks, and behind them is a barrier until the day they are resurrected. So when the horn is blown, there will be no kinship between them that day, nor will they ask about one another. Then those whose scales are heavy, it is they who are successful. But those whose scales are light, those are the ones who have lost their souls abiding in hell. The fire will scorch their faces, and they will be scowling therein. Were not my signs recited to you, but you used to deny them, they will say, "Our sustainer, our wretchedness overcame us, and we were a people astray. Our sustainer, remove us from it, and if we return to evil, we would indeed be wrongdoers." He will say, "Remain despised therein, and do not speak to me." Indeed, there was a group of my servants who said, "Our sustainer we have believed, so forgive us and have mercy upon us, and you are the best of the merciful." But you took them in mockery, to the point that they made you forget my remembrance, and you used to laugh at them. Indeed, I have rewarded them this day for their patience. They are truly the successful. He will say, "How long did you remain on earth in number of years?" They will say, "We remained a day or part of a day. Ask those who keep count." He will say, "You stayed but a little, if only you had known. Then did you think that we created you in vain, and that to us you would not be returned? So exalted is God, the Sovereign, the Truth. There is no deity except him, sustainer of the noble throne, and whoever invokes besides God another deity for which he has no proof, his reckoning is only with his sustainer." Indeed, the disbelievers will not succeed, and say, "My sustainer, forgive and have mercy, and you are the best of the merciful." In this final lesson of the surah, the discourse continues with a description of the fate of the polytheists, portraying it in a scene from the day of resurrection. It begins with the moment of death in this world and ends after the blowing of the horn. The surah then concludes with an affirmation of the oneness of God and a warning to those who invoke others besides him, cautioning them against such an end. The surah concludes by directing the messenger, may the blessings and peace of God be upon him, to turn to his sustainer, seeking his forgiveness and mercy. For God is indeed the best of those who show mercy. And when death comes to one of them, he says, "My sustainer, send me back, so that I may do righteousness in that which I have left behind." It is the scene of death, of one's final moments, and the proclamation of repentance upon facing the inevitability of death. In that instant, there is a plea to return to life, to make right what was left undone, to rectify what was neglected in terms of family and wealth. It is as if the scene is unfolding before our very eyes, vivid and real. Yet the response to this belated plea is not addressed to the one who makes it. Rather, it is proclaimed openly for all to hear. Nay, it is but a word he utters, a word devoid of meaning, empty of substance, and unworthy of consideration. It is a word uttered in the face of the overwhelming terror of the moment, not a word of sincere return or repentance. It is spoken in the moment of despair, with no real conviction in the heart to back it. And so the scene of death comes to an end, and barriers are raised between the one who utters this word and the world he once knew. The matter is settled, the ties are severed, the doors are closed, and the curtains are drawn. And behind them is a barrier until the day they are resurrected. They are neither among the living of this world nor yet among the people of the hereafter. They are in that intermediate realm, the barzakh, a state between two worlds awaiting the day of resurrection. Then the discourse moves forward to that day, portraying it for all to witness. And when the trumpet is blown, there will be no kinship between them on that day, nor will they ask one another. All the bonds that once connected them in this world will be severed, the values they once upheld, the relationships they cherished will fall away. There will be no kinship between them on that day, and the sheer horror of the day will render them speechless. They will stand in silence, motionless, unable to converse or inquire about one another. They will not ask one another. Then, in swift and concise terms, the balance of justice is revealed, and the process of weighing deeds is displayed. Then those whose scales are heavy, they are the successful, and those whose scales are light, they are the ones who have lost their souls, abiding in hell. The fire will scorch their faces, and they will grimace therein. The weighing of deeds is depicted in the Qur'an's unique style, where abstract concepts are conveyed through vivid sensory imagery. The image of the fire scorching faces until they become contorted and disfigured is one of profound pain and torment. Those whose scales are light have lost everything. They have lost their very selves. And when a person loses their own soul, what remains for them? What is left of their existence? It is as if they never existed at all. At this point, the narrative shifts from mere description to direct address and confrontation. The physical torment, as severe as it is, pales in comparison to the reproach and disgrace that accompanies it. It is as though we are witnessing the scene now, unfolding before us in agonizing dialogue. Were not my signs recited to you, but you used to deny them? It seems, upon hearing this question, that they are permitted to speak, allowed to plead. Perhaps an admission of guilt might open the door to hope, to forgiveness. They will say, our sustainer, our wretchedness overcame us, and we were a people astray. Our sustainer, remove us from it, and if we return to evil, we would indeed be wrongdoers. It is an acknowledgement filled with bitterness and regret. Yet it seems they have overstepped their bounds, lacking the proper decorum in addressing their sustainer. It was not for them to answer beyond the scope of the question. Indeed, it may have been a rhetorical question, meant only to reprimand, not to elicit a response. Thus they are rebuked with harshness and severity. He will say, be despised therein, and do not speak to me. Be silent and remain in your ignoble state. You are not worthy of speaking any further. You deserve the punishment and humiliation you now endure. Indeed, there was a group of my servants who said, our sustainer we have believed, so forgive us and have mercy upon us, and you are the best of those who show mercy. But you took them in mockery until they made you forget my remembrance, and you used to laugh at them. It was not enough that you disbelieved. Your crime was far worse. You ridiculed those who believed, those who turned to their sustainer, seeking his forgiveness and mercy. You laughed at them, and in doing so you became so engrossed in your mockery that you forgot all remembrance of God. You distanced yourselves from reflection and contemplation over the signs of faith spread throughout the universe. Now, behold where you stand, and where those whom you mocked now stand. Indeed, I have rewarded them this day for their patience, for they are the ones who have triumphed. After this harsh and humiliating response, and the explanation for their disgrace, the narrative shifts to another interrogation. He will say, how many years did you remain on earth? God, of course, knows the answer. But this question is posed to diminish the significance of their worldly existence, to make them realize how fleeting their time on earth was. They had sold their eternal life for the briefest of worldly moments. Now, in their current state of despair, they feel the shortness of that life acutely. And they respond, they will say, we remained a day or part of a day. Ask those who keep count. It is a response filled with frustration, hopelessness and regret. And the reply comes, stripping away any remaining illusion. He will say, you remained but a little if only you had known. Then, once again, the discourse returns to harsh reprimand and rebuke for their denial of the hereafter, while also illuminating the wisdom behind resurrection, wisdom embedded in the very act of creation itself. Did you think that we created you in vain, and that to us you would not be returned? The purpose of resurrection is linked to the purpose of creation. It is a calculated part of the divine plan, decreed and measured with precision. Resurrection is but a stage in the journey of existence, leading to its final completion and full realization. Only those who are blind to the greater wisdom of God, manifest in the very fabric of the universe, fail to grasp this truth. The Surah concludes by affirming the fundamental principle of faith, Tawhid, the oneness of God. It also declares the ultimate loss of those who associate partners with God, contrasting their fate with the success of the believers as proclaimed at the beginning of the Surah. And it directs the believer to turn to God, seeking His mercy and forgiveness, for He is the most merciful of all. So exalted is God, the Sovereign, the Truth. There is no deity except Him, the sustainer of the noble throne. And whoever invokes besides God another deity for which he has no proof, his reckoning is only with his sustainer. Indeed, the disbelievers will not succeed and say, my sustainer, forgive and have mercy, for you are the best of those who show mercy. This final statement comes after the preceding scene of the Day of Judgment, and after all the arguments, proofs and signs laid out throughout the Surah. It is the natural and logical conclusion to all that has been mentioned. It affirms God's transcendence, His sovereignty, and His absolute control over all things. He is the only true deity, the one who alone possesses the power of the throne. Any claim of divinity beside God is baseless, unsupported by any evidence, neither from the signs in the universe, nor from the innate nature of the human soul, nor from reason itself. The fate of those who make such claims is left to their sustainer, and the result is clear. Indeed, the disbelievers will not succeed. This is a universal law, unchanging and unbreakable, just as the success of the believers is part of the greater divine order. Whatever blessings, pleasures, power or authority the disbelievers might enjoy in this world is not true success. It is but a test, a means of enticement that ultimately leads to destruction. And even if some of them seem to escape punishment in this life, the final reckoning awaits in the hereafter. For the hereafter is not a separate event in God's plan. It is the final stage in the journey of existence, a necessary part of the divine vision. The final verse of Surah Al-Mu'minun is a plea to God for mercy and forgiveness. And say, my sustainer, forgive and have mercy, for you are the best of those who show mercy. Thus, the beginning and the end of the surah are beautifully connected. At the start, we see the success of the believers, and at the end, we see the loss of the disbelievers. The surah begins with the quality of humility in prayer, and it concludes with turning to God in humble supplication. In this way, the beginning and end of the surah are harmoniously linked in the light of faith.